Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Merry New Year, everybody!
Merry New Year!
Merry New Year! Happy New Year!
Beef jerky time!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2022. Welcome to Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris,
I'm Rob.
and it's already off to a very happy start, and also and a pretty good start. So I hope that everybody is doing well. I hope you guys had a happy and healthy New Year and holiday. I hope everything went nice. Hope you had some good food and some great memories.
Hope you didn't catch COVID.
Yeah, we hope that too. We really hope that you didn't catch COVID, but if you did, we hope that you're safe in your house, you're quarantining A-okay, and it's nothing more than a cold at this point. So hopefully you're okay, and we hope that your families are all happy and healthy. If you want to know what that just was, that was that was part of Diddy Kong Racing. It's this video. It's this Nintendo 64 game by Rare, which I think that we've talked about in one of the first couple of episodes, probably in Banjo-Kazooie, if we had mentioned that. It's a racing game about, well, it's just Donkey Kong and weird animals just racing a giant evil wizard pig, and you're being helped by what's kind of a racist gimmick now. You're being helped by an Indian elephant who is also Indian culturally. He's dressed in all kinds of traditional Indian regalia, and when you get a golden balloon, he, for winning a race, he flies in on a magic carpet, and he says in a very thick Indian accent, "This is for you," and he gives you the golden balloon. We're not talking so just for context of what that is, you can play. It's a really great game, but it's just that Bart has not aged well, and now it's just hilariously in bad taste. But that was the 90s for you. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about Trading Places. It's a really great movie that a lot of people tend to consider a New Year's Eve movie, technically, because there's a big New Year's party at the end of the movie where
It's kind of just like a holiday movie because it takes place over the holidays.
It does,
from
but
Christmas through New Year's.
It does, but it crescendos at New Year's.
Yeah.
And then the first day of trading, a bunch of shenanigans happen. If you haven't seen the movie, you really should. It's on Prime for a few bucks, and as much as I don't want to give
It's worth it.
anymore,
Buy it.
It is totally worth it, and it's definitely worth buying. What is this? This movie was 1983. I believe, starring Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but before that, I just want to do our usual run of things that we got to do here. We are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the very weirdest in pop culture, whether it's a TV show, a movie, a video game, a strange restaurant chain that once existed and no longer does, bizarre toys, bizarre devices and contraptions. You name it, we're going to cover it at some point. And there's a lot of ways that you can help us out too. You can support the show if you like the show, if you've been listening to the show for some time, if you're a loyalist, if you're a Legion loyalist, we appreciate it. And you can and you want to give us a couple of dollars, you can head over to patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. You can even do it through Podbean. And you can kick back as little as $1. You get access to our Discord server, so you can talk about things. You can find out what episodes we're going to be doing next, and you might get some access to certain. Maybe you'll even be able to get access to some things before anybody else. You might even be able to chat with us a couple times. 2 points where if you want to give us a little extra money, you can even be on the show and you pick the topic that we're going to talk about, and we will then be at your mercy for the better part of an hour to just talk about whatever it is that you want us to talk about because you paid for it. But if you want to help us out, that's great. If you don't, that's totally fine. You can also support us for free by listening to the show and following us on social media. We're on social media, twitter.com/WDTEpod, or you can like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/whydoesthisexistpod. You can also check out our episodes, and you can read some bonus articles and things like that we've also got on our website, whydoesthisexistpod.com. And if you want to just thank us in private, you can happily do so, or if you want to send a tip our way, you can do so in private by emailing whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. Or if you want to even somehow let us know what our ratings are, like that time in August when we were number 8 in Nigeria, that would be really swell too. But you can also
bring us to number 1 in Nigeria.
Yeah, bring us to number 1 in Nigeria. Let's see what happens. And then maybe we'll do Coming to America.
And then maybe we'll get contacted by a Nigerian prince who wants to fund us.
Yeah, but we'll have to give him our social security number. We won't do that.
Yeah.
If you want to give us an extra $20 a month on Patreon, we'll give him your social security number.
And you can have his millions.
You can have his millions. It's a charitable donation from us to you. You can also find us on Podbean, YouTube, which we would really appreciate if you liked and commented and subscribed to that channel so that it can help boost our numbers, and one day we can hopefully reach 1,000 subscribers minimum, so that way we can actually get the money for monetizing, which would probably be pennies on the dollar. But YouTube, as you all know, is a very shady platform, and, well, we're not at its mercy, but it is one way for you to consume our media, but our media is everywhere. Where else? It's on Podbean, like I said, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, TuneIn, Alexa, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, and Stitcher. So that's where you can find us. That's where you can listen to the show. And I've said just about all that I can before we get. So let's get on. Let's get on with it. Here's the news. That's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. So let's get on with the goddamn show. Trading Places is a fun little movie. It's absolutely hilarious, and I think that it easily holds up to this day.
Yeah, I want to bring up, we were talking about before we started the podcast, the casting choice. Originally, it was intended to be Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder playing Billy Ray Valentine and Lewis Winthorpe, respectively. But they ended up going with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, which I think was ended up being a better choice. I think their chemistry worked really well. But what I actually didn't realize, and I don't know if it said this on the trivia page, but according to Wikipedia, it says that they dropped Pryor when he was, quote unquote, severely injured after setting fire to himself while freebasing cocaine.
Oh, yeah, that was a big thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he talks about it in, I think, Live in the Sunset Strip.
Jesus.
Yeah, I think that's what led to him developing. I want to say when he passed, he had, like, I think that led to him developing difficulties later in life.
Well,
because
I mean,
and I think
just
he may
doing
have
cocaine in general, probably.
Well, cocaine in general, but being set on fire didn't help. I forget how he passed. I think he had. I want to say it was some kind of a cancer, but I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, by the end, but by the time he was much older, he was he was in a wheelchair the last years of his life. He wasn't really very mobile.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast recently. I think it was Gilbert Gottfried on Joe Rogan.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I think Gilbert was talking about how he had met Richard at the Comedy Store, like late in his life. Like, he was so feeble, he basically had to be like helped on the stage and off the stage and stuff. And it was kind of a sad ending for such an iconic comic. But anyway, so he ended up not being cast in Trading Places, and we got, of course, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, which I believe, I know in the past we've like sang Eddie Murphy's praises multiple times on the podcast because the guy's a genius, and I'm pretty sure we've sang Dan Aykroyd's praises a number of times on the podcast.
Oh, I'm sure. We had the whole Ghostbusters podcast, so
yes,
and we also had the PJs podcast, which I've promised to since release because we had some audio difficulties, but I will release it.
It's a good one, and
it is,
the PJs is really a good show. So
yeah, so like I've said on the show with the PJs, I will release the original Lost episode, and then down the line later this year we will revisit it.
Speaking of which, I actually just saw, I believe on Hulu, the PJs is now on Hulu.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I might have to check it out and watch it again.
All right. So maybe...
And actually watch it this time, because I never got to... we talked about this on the PJs podcast, that like when it was on, I wasn't really that interested in it, because I was really young when it was on. So I was like, oh, this is pretty funny, but like, it was like an adult cartoon, claymation show. So I actually really do want to kind of like check it out and actually see if it still holds up today, which I think it does. We watched a couple of episodes and
yeah, I think it does. All right, so that might be good. You'll have a fresh take on it.
Yeah. Anyway, so
back to
Eddie
Trading
Murphy.
Places. So Trading Places is basically it's a retelling. It's a more modern retelling of like The Prince and the Pauper in a way, where instead of the prince and the pauper just meeting, being tired of each other's lives and deciding to switch places, it's done for these two people. So for context, Dan Aykroyd's character, Winthorpe, he's a stockbroker in Philadelphia. He's a commodities trader at a huge commodities brokerage firm. And,
Duke and Duke.
Yes, Duke and Duke, owned by the
Which are
brothers.
The eponymous Duke brothers.
Yes.
Randolph and Mortimer.
Yes.
Who remind me very much of the Muppets.
Waldorf and Statler.
Waldorf, yeah. They're very much like that. Like, it's almost like they're like a parody of like the rich old, like, stockbroker, bajillionaire like brothers.
Yes. So they get this idea based on a science paper that one of them is reading about, and they get this crazy idea where they're gonna force the Prince and the Pauper on these people. So Winthorpe is actually really, really great at his job, and he's engaged to the niece of one of the Duke brothers. So he's got everything going on for him. He's on cloud nine, and he's kind of an asshole. Well, he's an asshole. And Eddie Murphy is a homeless guy who's just, trying to he's just trying to do what he's got to do to make a buck. Even he's like his whole shtick is he's pretending that he was a Vietnam vet who had his legs blown off. Yeah. It becomes very clear that he can still walk, and he very much has his legs fully intact, and he was never in Vietnam when
he's like the biggest bullshit artist around, pretty much.
Yeah, so you got one person who's conning people legally, and you got the other person who's conning people illegally. And the two Duke brothers, they decide that they're gonna force a Prince and the Pauper scenario based on the research, and the research is debating on whether it's nature or is having a stronger argument for nature being able to produce a higher quality specimen,
Right.
nurture. So they decide to take a little wager. They do their usual bet, and they take and they ruin Winthorpe's life. They take it away from him completely. They kick him out of his penthouse.
They own like his whole life, by the way. Like they own his penthouse or his apartment, whatever it is, his condo, his townhouse. They he works for them, so they own his revenue stream, and like his fiance is their grandniece, so like they ruin him, and like she hates him then too.
Yeah. And they kick him. They put him on the streets and they ruin his life completely. And also, how would that guy ever be able to get any work again in the stockbrokers union? Because well, I mean, not that stockbrokers are a union, but like, how would he be able to get work in that field again when like he's in one of the top firms and they're like 100-something-year name?
He's basically accused of stealing from them.
Yeah.
And they plant like money on him to like say that, and then they end up planting drugs on him, angel dust.
Yeah,
which leads to like a pretty hilarious exchange where his fiance comes to bail him out of jail, and she's like, I can't believe you were like selling like heroin or something like that, and he's like, it wasn't heroin, it was angel dust, PCP. It's like that matters like somehow. Yeah.
It makes him look more guilty because he's like
he knows exactly what it is. The guy who does this, that sets all this up, is the guy that works for the Dukes, who also is planning on stealing the USDA's like report on orange crops so that the Dukes could do insider trading.
Yes,
this guy's called Beeks, who's played by the ultimate like asshole guy. What's his name? Paul Gleason, famous for playing the principal in The Breakfast Club, and the chief of police in Die Hard, who's a douchebag. So it's just like the perfect asshole to like do this.
I think that was just basically his whole career in the 80s. He was just lead asshole number one.
I don't know about him, but I know that the guy that played the EPA guy in Ghostbusters, and he was also in Die Hard as the newscaster that everybody hates.
Yeah, he was a douche in a lot of his roles too.
Yeah, he actually, like, people hated him in real life, and he was actually like a really nice guy, and he hated it because he got like typecast as a douchebag. So I'm sure Paul Gleason had to go through shit too, because he always played asshole characters.
Probably. I feel bad for that, but it's also how they made their living. So
yeah, that's true.
Like, if you really hated it that much, you would have quit.
Right. So they basically hire this guy Beeks to ruin Winthorpe's life, and as he's getting like released from jail, like Beeks like pays off this prostitute Ophelia to go basically like feel him up and be like, hey, where's your drug, and try to be like, hey man, I need your drugs, and like be all like it's like his like side chick, and so his fiance like leaves him right there on the steps of the police station, and he's basically hit rock bottom at this point, and Ophelia kind of feels bad for him, and takes him in and like agrees to help him if he, for like a big payoff. Like he basically says like, if you help me get my life back, I'm rich, I'll give you like a lot of money and you won't have to like be a prostitute anymore. So she agrees to help him.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the Dukes go to the jail where Billy Ray Valentine, Eddie Murphy's character, is being held because he was accused by Winthorpe of trying to steal from him. So he's sitting in a holding cell in the jail, and the Dukes go and bail him out and decide. And at this point, this is where they're like, okay, well, we're going to help you out. We're going to give you this huge mansion and this limo and this butler, and you're going to come work for us as a stockbroker. And he basically takes over Winthorpe's life completely. They trade places.
Yep. And and Eddie Murphy has no training, no experience in it, but he has like in stocks, but he's street smart.
Yes.
And he ends up figuring out what commodities trading is right away.
Yes. And he's able to like actually do well and excel at the job.
Right.
And it's interesting because it's like, we're talking about the nature versus nurture thing, where Winthorpe was born into it. And yes, he was a good stockbroker. But when he hits rock bottom and becomes a homeless person, he basically like hits rock bottom, and he starts like drinking and like
Well, he not only hits rock bottom, he stays there.
Yes.
Like there's no, like once they've ruined his life because he was so pampered and privileged, he has no survival skills.
Yes.
He's done.
And Eddie Murphy and Billy Ray Valentine.
They also mention that like the Duke brothers, when they're making the bet, they're also like one of them also like chimes in and he says, "Well, it's not the first time we've done something like this."
Yeah.
They already know full and hell well what they're doing.
Yes.
But they just never paid attention to what happened.
Yeah. And I think their whole thing was like they're trying to see how long it takes before Winthorpe literally becomes a criminal. Like,
I think they were betting on the time. I think they were just betting within a certain time frame as to like do like one would do that like one would succeed and one would fail, like and one would one side of the bet and one was taking the other side.
Yeah. And it doesn't take long because Christmas, they're having a Christmas party at the Duke brothers' offices. And Winthorpe shows up in a Santa suit, brandishing a gun. And his plan is to plant drugs into Billy Ray's desk, which used to be his desk, so that Billy Ray gets accused of being a drug addict. And, of course, he gets caught and he escapes, by brandishing the gun.
Well, don't forget he stole the salmon from the Christmas party.
That's true. Yeah, he stuffs it in his friggin' Santa beard, which is hilarious. And so he escapes, goes out running out into the night. Billy Ray Valentine is like, he's like, whoa, that was, he's like pretty crazy. So he goes to the bathroom and he's actually he's trying to smoke one of the joints that Winthorpe was trying to plant in his desk. And who walks in but the Duke brothers? So he kind of like stands up on the toilet because he's sitting in the stall, and they exchange their bet. Because the one was right that Winthorpe would turn into a criminal. And what was their bet? Well, it was $1. They ruined a man's life over $1. So,
sounds like corporate America to me.
Yeah, it does. So Billy Ray hears the whole thing. He hears their whole plan and what happened. And also hears that, now that they've proved their point, they're going to also drop his ass too to the curb. So he kind of runs out into the night to try to find Winthorpe. And at this point, Winthorpe is back at Ophelia's apartment, and he's trying to kill himself by taking pills. So he's sitting in the bathtub, and he takes like a whole bunch of pills. So they break the door down. They get to him. I guess they like somehow save him, from dying. And they kind of like lay him down, and he recovers. And then, when he like gets up, Valentine tells him like the whole thing, like this is the Dukes were trying to screw us both over, basically.
Yeah.
And so they actually bring him back to the apartment that Valentine is using, his old apartment. And the butler helps them nurse him back to health. And so then they learn that that Beeks, the guy that's secretly working for the Dukes, has the USDA report. And so now their plan is to exchange it with a forgery and steal the real one. So Beeks is traveling from Philadelphia, which is where this, the first half of the movie takes place, where Winthorpe lives and the Duke brothers' brokerage firm is. And they're taking the train up to Manhattan to the exchange, to the stock exchange. So they all get on the train and they all dress up in different disguises, and it's a New Year's party and it's a costume party, so everyone's kind of dressed up as different things. And I'm pretty sure it's friggin' Jim Belushi is the friggin' Gorilla Man, right?
It's Jim Belushi.
Yeah, of course.
Pretty much anything that John Belushi would have been in for the rest of his career, his brother stepped right in. His brother isn't good, but he just doesn't compare. They were just like, all right, well, get the guy we want for obvious reasons. He's just So so the next best thing, we'll at least get.
Was it John Belushi still alive at this point when this movie came out, though?
No, I thought John Belushi had passed in 81, or did he pass in?
It might have been 81.
I don't know. Let me check.
I'm gonna look it up right now. 82.
Okay, yeah. So he had just passed the previous year. Yeah.
Yeah, so they might have been filming Trading Places, but he probably didn't. They probably after he died.
Yeah, because I don't see any reason why in any Dan Aykroyd thing why why Jim Belushi would be used unless John
Instead of John Belushi. Yeah.
yeah or anything. So I mean, it's similar to how Kevin James basically has a career because Chris Farley's not with us. Jim Belushi has a career because
Yes.
his brother is not with us.
Yeah. So they dress up in these ridiculous costumes, and it's interesting because it's it's a costume party, so everyone's dressed up in costumes, but the four of them, Winthorpe, Valentine, Ophelia, and Coleman, Winthorpe's butler, they're dressed up and they're acting like the people that they're dressed up as, and like I'm pretty sure Beeks knows who Coleman is, so like immediately recognizes him, and like. And Winthorpe's disguise is so bad. He's just wearing blackface pretty much.
Mean, all of their disguises are pretty bad, to be honest.
Yeah, they're so bad.
Eddie Murphy is like this like foreign exchange student from is it Nigeria?
From Cameroon.
From Cameroon? No.
Yes.
He's from Cameroon? Okay.
Yeah, because Winthorpe is dressed up as a Jamaican. He's like a Rastafarian. Yeah.
Yeah, which
the most stereotypical like Rastafarian guy.
Yes, and he has a terrible Jamaican accent, and he is wearing blackface pretty much in this. Which this is, again for context, this is 1983, which they were still doing, and people didn't have a problem with it.
Well, and Eddie Murphy obviously was in the movie and didn't have a problem with it, so I'm sure it was okay.
Right.
I'm sure they cleared it with him. They'll be like, hey, we're going to do this joke. Is that okay?
I would think they would, because Eddie Murphy
probably thought it was funny.
Yeah, he might have. It could have been his idea for all we know, but Eddie Murphy was he was beginning to peak at that point.
Yeah.
Like he was in the prime of his career where like he couldn't miss, and neither could Dan Aykroyd at this point either. This was already going to be very good, but there was again, just for context, there were things that they did then that they definitely could not do now. That part including, and I think on SNL at one point, Eddie Murphy did a skit called "White Like Me," where he walked around in whiteface pretending to be.
He did in
like
Trading Places.
No, I know, but he had done it on SNL, and like it.
Oh yeah,
it's actually a really funny segment.
Look, I think it's hilarious when Eddie Murphy does like where he plays like every character, and he plays like an old Jewish man and like like the barbershop guy. Like it's hilarious. Like he's just good at it.
It's great.
It's not offensive. It's funny. Like
no, I think it's good when he does it.
But anyway, so they're in these terrible disguises, and it's obvious who they are. And Beeks knows every single one of them.
Yeah. Well, also Ophelia's dressed as she's dressed as like a she's dressed
as a Swedish girl or something.
She's dressed as a girl. No, she's dressed as like a German girl, and she's wearing the lederhosen, or like German or Holland or Dutch or something.
She's wearing lederhosen, but she says she's from Sweden. And
right. And then
Coleman makes a comment. Coleman makes a comment. He's like, "But you're wearing lederhosen," and then she's like, "Yeah, from Sweden."
Coleman is the only believable costume. He's just like an Irish preacher.
Yes, yeah, like an Irish vicar with like the hat and like the priest get up.
Yeah, but also during this New Year's party, everybody's in costume anyway.
Yeah, I mean Eddie Murphy's. Valentine's costume is pretty believable.
Yeah,
he's like an African guy, but it's kind of stereotypical anyway because he's wearing like this giant robe and like the little hat and stuff like that, and and of course he's like this big boisterous presence, and they use his robe as like, okay, we're gonna stick the real suitcase under my robe and put the fake one, that's how they kind of like use it. So, of course, like, this doesn't fool Beeks at all. Like, he's not a stupid person, obviously. And he holds him up at gunpoint and brings him to the cargo, like the cargo car of the train, where they're also transporting a male gorilla. Now, at this point, like, the Beeks, like runs into Jim Belushi, who's, like, this party animal guy dressed up as a gorilla. And, like, he's hitting on Ophelia, Jamie Lee Curtis. And Beaks is like, like, get the hell out of the way or whatever, and like, is like, so like, he's like, oh, what's that, your dad or something? So he Jim Belushi follows them to the cargo car, and kind of like causes a distraction and like gets in a fight with them, and like there's a like a little like scuffle, and then he like knocks out Jim Belushi, who's dressed as a gorilla, and the gorilla sees this and thinks that he just like punched out like a female gorilla, so just beats him over the head and knocks like Beaks out. It's like the most ridiculous thing ever. So they strip Jim Belushi and put Beaks in the gorilla costume and like tape his mouth shut, and then put him in the cage with the gorilla, who then like is in love with him. So you can guess what happens to him.
Yes, the gorilla has a very fun time. Beaks does not have a fun time.
No. And I love the part where they're like, they take the gorilla, they're unloading it from the train, they're gonna put him on a ship, they're like supposed to send him back to like Africa or something, and they're like, hey, there's only supposed to be one gorilla, and like the guy on the dock is like, look, he's in love, and like, they just send him away. So
that happens. So Beaks pretty much is just going to get raped forever
by a gorilla, a male gorilla. I
don't know how bad this guy is that for him to deserve all that, but he was willing to kill 4 people. So there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll be in gorilla hell forever, or heaven. I don't know. Maybe he likes it, but they don't really explain. So
no, he's just gone.
So leave that to your imagination as to whether or not Beaks is enjoying his just desserts, or enjoying the bananas.
Oh God! Don't mention bananas.
To put a pun. It's a bunch of bananas.
So, with the real USDA report in hand and the fake one given to the Dukes, they go to the stock exchange in New York City to like basically screw them over. And they let the Dukes pretty much buy all these like shares of orange juice futures. And they only like buy, they had bought and already I guess the lower priced ones. It's very hard to explain because it's like stockbroker talk, and like you have to kind of understand a little bit what's going on with the market to understand what's going on with the scene, like how like they short sell contracts and futures and all that stuff. I don't
know how that stuff works that well. I mean, I did work for a couple of like financial publications for a while. Mm-hmm. I don't really know how futures work. That wasn't really a big point of contention.
Basically, what happens to the Dukes is what happened to all those people on Wall Street Bets on Reddit that like bought all these friggin' short sell like futures and then like didn't know what they were doing and had like $200,000 in debt overnight. Like, it's like, the market's closed, you owe us $200,000. So basically, that's what happened to the Dukes, except on a much larger scale because they owe $394 million.
Right, which there's no way that they have.
Pay. No.
Like basically, if they thought that the futures report that they got, they thought that it was going to go. I think they thought that it would go one way, but they had the fake report, so realistically, it went the other way. And Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, they knew that, but also, smart little puppy Ophelia actually knew what she was doing financially, so she had a bunch of money in bonds.
Yes,
she had saved up a bunch of money in bonds, so she consciously went into the profession that she went into. She went into like being a prostitute, knowing that like she does, and she points out she doesn't do drugs. She doesn't have a pimp. She just saves all of her money and she puts it into bonds.
Yes,
she for some weird reason she had a plan of all things to be a prostitute and figured out that she would make way more money over time being a prostitute and putting all of her money into bonds because it's all cash and everything. Because because back then in the 80s, a lot of work was just off the books, and like,
Yes.
you would really question where you got the money or how you got this much money. So it was a lot more loose now, as opposed to now where everything is like digital. They need to know all your info and everything to even open a bank account, where before it was much more loosey goosey. But anyway, she already has like a crazy amount of savings, which like for the time, I think she said she had like 54,000 in bonds or something like that, which is a very good number. But like by 1984 standards, I guess
A lot of money.
inflation, it's at least double that.
Yes, I would say.
Yeah, let me just see. 1984. I'm sorry, 1983.
A short side here is so they actually filmed on the real exchange in the World Trade Center.
Triple, 150,000.
Okay, wow.
$150,694.70. So she was sitting on that in bonds, in like treasury bonds and everything. And back then, it was a lot better. It was a lot more people trusted bonds. Where now people don't. People just trust whatever way the wind is blowing. It seems. Where that's why she went into bonds, and that was like a more common thing. My dad's talked about this, how like, you know, back when, you know, you'd put all this money into bonds, and like he knew a friend who like he was able to like get a mortgage or like pay off his house based on like 5-year bonds that he bought over time, where now you don't really see that a whole lot. But anyway, this is not a financial lesson. This is a movie, God damn it. So like having the real things, like Ophelia like gave him all of her money, and she gives Winthorpe and Billy Ray all of her money, and so does Coleman.
Yes.
The money that they've saved, and they give it to them, and they say, all right, well, if you're doing this plan, we're gonna go all in.
Yes.
That's why they end up going to the train station and everything, and they give them all their money to like destroy the stock market with the real crop.
Right. Because so what happens? The USDA report basically says is that there was a frost, and the frost didn't really affect the oranges, so there's not going to be an orange juice shortage. The fake report that they gave to the Dukes says there is going to be an orange juice shortage, so they're buying based off of that knowledge.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's false, and that's why they buy so much, and then they get screwed, and they don't have the money to actually pay off the stock market for all the shares of orange juice contracts that they bought.
Right. They're buying everything thinking that because there'll be a shortage of orange juice, that of orange juice will be inflated and they'll make a killing.
Like the people see the Dukes buying up orange juice contracts and start buying, like, oh, the Dukes are up to something, quick, start buying orange juice. So then, you know, Eddie Murphy and Winthorpe are just standing there biding their time, and then they sell all the contracts they had and make like millions of dollars immediately, because, you know, the price was driven up so high because the Dukes kept buying it.
Yep.
So it's an interesting little side note about this is that they actually filmed this on the actual trading floor in the New York Stock Exchange, and or in the commodities market in the World Trade Center, rather. And my grandfather actually worked as a broker in the commodities market. So he is allegedly, we've never actually spotted him, but he is allegedly somewhere in the scene on the floor. I don't know if like they actually used the shot with him in it, or like he just didn't make the cut of the movie, but he was there while they were filming this, doing his job.
That's
because
awesome.
Like basically used everybody that was actually like brokers there as extras, because they needed the stock, you know, they needed to make it look like the actual commodities market.
That's all.
So he's somewhere in there. We've never spotted him, and we've tried like countless times. I've seen this movie probably like hundreds of times, and we've always tried to see him, but we can never see him. But there's so much activity going on; it would be really hard to see him. So you know,
you'd have to have an eagle eye, or he went to the bathroom during that point.
He could have.
It's a long day, but actually, I'm pretty sure bathroom breaks were illegal in the stock market.
Well, there's a funny scene where like the bell rings and all the guys like walk out of the stalls of the bathroom at the same time, basically, because they have to go back to work to sell and buy. And
Yeah, it's like the racehorse. It's like the Kentucky Derby.
Oh yeah, I mean I've been on the floor because my grandfather used to bring me to work sometimes, and it's like insanity. Like
Oh
you
yeah,
wouldn't, I couldn't even imagine working as a broker because it's like just complete like you can't even hear yourself think. Pretty much, it's crazy.
I just don't know how you do that. At least back then, I don't know what it's like. I don't know if it's similar now or if it's just people.
I'm sure it is.
I'm sure
I mean,
it's-
it's electronic
it's-
now, so it's probably a little bit easier, but still.
Yeah, it's probably a bit more quiet, but not
Yeah.
much. There's probably still people going crazy,
Oh yeah.
but I can't imagine how wild it was back then.
Yeah. Yeah, in the 80s when that was like the boom time, that was like when the stock market was like, the place to make money, So it was crazy.
Yeah, between what was the year that the stock market crashed in the 80s? Actually,
It's a Black Monday or something like that.
yeah,
It was called, I think.
1987. So this was way before it. This is when
Yes.
money was just raining endlessly from the sky.
Yes.
Which that eventually happened again, but it took a while, and then we had the tech bubble, and now we're in this thing, and then we had, of course, 2008, and now we have this thing, which is similar to the tech bubble, and we'll see what happens, but that's, like I said, this is not financial advice.
Yeah. I mean, the 90s were kind of boom times, and then 9/11
yeah.
happened, and that friggin' crashed it again.
Yeah.
The market fluctuates.
Yeah, it always does, but it's you never know, but it definitely must have been a madhouse in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
Especially commodities, because commodities were were like the big hot thing, and that was where the hedge funds rose to prominence, and a lot of the hedge funds were big in commodities.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, also hedge funds, they'll buy anything. It's crazy. They'll buy anything because they're not investing their money.
Yeah, of course.
Do anything with it. It's bananas, and they're almost always underperformed. So I don't know why you would even bother with them. But hey,
It was hilarious when all those friggin' idiots on Wall Street bets friggin' put that one hedge fund out of business pretty much overnight because they friggin' made GameStop worth 10 times what it was previously, and this hedge fund couldn't pay it. They didn't have the money to own whatever part of GameStop they owned anymore.
oh, it was
So
beautiful.
it fucking bankrupted them pretty much. It was hilarious.
It was beautiful. It was like 10 dukes going down.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, they all got bailed out, so they...
Of course. Well, that's fucking,
Of course they
how
do.
everything works.
Yeah, we talked about this on the podcast before at the heat of the GameStop rally. We're not going to talk about it again in great depth, but yeah, it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, Trading Places, and of course at the end of the movie, this is still the 80s where good triumphs over evil in just about every movie.
Mm-hmm.
And of course in some ways it's a little cheesy, but they do what they have to do, and we don't fully realize what has happened to I almost called them Waldorf and Statler to
Randolph and Mortimer.
yes, Randolph and Mortimer. We don't fully realize what's happened to them until you see Coming to America.
Yes.
Coming to America, funny enough, is in the same universe as Trading Places.
Yes, because Mortimer and Randolph reprised their roles as Mortimer. Well, not Ralph Bellamy and Don Ameche reprised their roles as Randolph and Mortimer, and
It's one very brief second in the movie.
yeah, and it's hilarious. And we should really talk about Trading Places because it's a fucking great movie.
Yeah,
Didn't we? We did talk about it, did we?
that's this show.
I mean, Coming to America. We did talk about Coming to America.
We did on that PJ's podcast that is on.
Okay.
That will soon see the light of day.
Well, we need to do I think we need to do a Coming to America.
Oh, yeah, we should.
Because it's another great Eddie Murphy, 80s Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah.
And basically, he's a prince from Africa, and he's rich, so he takes some money from his servant because his servant has all this money because he's greedy and a jerk and wants to live like a king while the prince is trying to be modest because he wants to impress this girl. Anyway, he takes all the guy's money, which is like, thousands upon thousands of dollars because they're like royalty, and he gives it to these homeless people. And the homeless people are Randolph and Mortimer Duke. And Mortimer's like, Randolph, look. And Mortimer's like, and Randolph's like, I'm still not talking to you. And then he's like, but look. And they have all this money. And he's like, Mortimer, we're back. So still waiting for that sequel that we'll never get because both Ralph Bellamy and Donna Mecci are now passed away. But that would be hilarious.
It would be really funny if, no, I don't know. It would have been really funny if there is an Easter egg in Coming to America 2.
Yeah.
Or Coming to America, dumb.
Coming to America.
Yeah, or it would have been funny if there was like a part where they're in Queens and there's just happens to be like a big bank that just says Duke and Duke on it, or a big
Duke and Duke, yeah.
Yeah, or if somebody just mentions it, oh, you mean the place next to the Duke and Duke building?
Yeah.
Like, just something subtle would have been nice, but they did that. I don't know. That movie just wasn't really that great. Like, it was. I
didn't see it. I didn't watch it yet.
It was basically.
I mean, how could it possibly live up to the original? Especially like how many years later? Like almost 40 years later, they decide to make it. No,
I don't think it ever had. I don't think it ever would have like totally lived up to the original. But
30 years, whatever. Yeah,
they definitely could have done a better job with it. A lot of it was just like a clip show, basically. Like a lot of it was just like it was kind of like a bunch of really. It was kind of like a bunch of Family Guy-esque jokes where it was like, remember this, remember this, remember this. It was like banking on.
Oh yeah.
It was banking heavily on the nostalgia of the first movie.
Of course, because that was like they're like really their claim to fame was that.
But I mean, like not in a good way. Like it didn't like there's like I'll give you an example. Have you seen Cobra Kai?
I have not watched Cobra Kai. No.
All right. Well, I guess that sucks to be you then. Cobra Kai has a bunch of flashbacks to the Karate Kid movies. So that you don't have to watch them before watching this.
Right. Which makes sense.
Right. They do it tastefully. And like it's just enough to show you what happened. They don't draw too heavily on the past. For like in that retrospect, where like coming to America 2, every second of that movie is spent reminding you about what happened in the first movie. Like they were to the point where they de-age them during a flashback to add to that flashback.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it's like it's the whole point. The whole movie, you're just like this. It feels like a clip show episode, and not necessarily the movie itself. I was disappointed by it. There's like I will say that Wesley Snipes' character steals the show.
Yeah. Isn't he like the general or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah, the movie starts okay. The movie starts off pretty well, but once after a moment, once they get maybe like 20 minutes in, it's just like, oh, it's just you're not even trying at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, Eddie Murphy, he has such an extensive catalog of hits that it's just
yes.
And Dan Aykroyd as well, and also Jamie Lee Curtis. Curtis. This movie was directed by John Landis, who was pretty much like the top director in the business in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like comedies and memorable movies.
Animal House, The Blues Brothers, American Werewolf in London, Three Amigos, Coming to America.
Was he? I think it was Ferris Bueller's Day Off too. Was he?
I
think he was, but I'm not sure. Was he? Was he also Breakfast Club? Was that him?
No, that was another guy that.
Oh, he directed Thriller. I didn't know that.
Yes. Spies Like Us, which Clue, the movie.
Oh yeah, that's one.
Yeah, there's a lot of hits on his resume.
I didn't know he did The Stupids. That movie's actually not as bad as I thought that it would be.
Really?
It's actually pretty damn funny.
It's got Tom Arnold though. That's
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, oh god, I hope where you're just like you're morbidly curious to watch it, and then when you do, you're like, oh, that wasn't as.
I'm surprised because I'm sure John Landis's direction helped that movie because Tom Arnold's just awful.
Yeah. Well, also, if you've ever read the Stupids books, they're stupid.
Oh,
surprise, surprise.
Another little interesting piece of trivia is Frank Oz, of course, one of the, collaborated with Jim Henson, who, we did a podcast on a couple weeks ago. Frank Oz makes a cameo as one of the police officers that arrests Winthorpe.
I thought it was him. I recognized his voice a little bit. And I also saw his name in the credits, and I was like, what does he have to do with this?
Yeah.
But there he is.
He's also in another movie directed by John Landis, Spies Like Us, also starring Dan Aykroyd, another great 80s movie. It's just I think the 80s, honestly, was the best time for comedy movies.
Yeah.
You really had the best comics making movies at that time.
And the movies were very good and timeless.
Yes.
Which today you really don't get a lot of that. Even if a movie is good, it ages itself immediately.
Yes.
It doesn't it's in the time period that it is. It's just
they don't use too much topical humor in a lot of these classic 80s comedy movies, so it's like you said, it's timeless. It just it works anywhere because there's not all these look at all these references to the 1980s here, which I think was a problem that kind of happened it happens a lot with comedy now, is that there's too much topical humor and it just isn't as funny because topical humor can be funny, but it doesn't hold up in 10 years,
Right, because it just immediately dates itself, and
exactly
after a while, you're just the jokes are just not going to land with with certain with newer generations.
Uh-huh.
Just as an example, any Donald Trump reference to him being president, it might be a thing. It might be a running gag for a little while in comedies from the past few years to maybe the next few years, but it's not going to be funny in 20 years when someone when our great grandchildren are watching this, or our grandchildren or something, or just even our kids, they're just going to be well, they're they'll see it and they'll just say, okay, I don't get that joke.
Yeah.
Or they'll just not understand the line, and it'll just lose all meaning. Where now we're with movies like this, for the most part, they really don't, unless there's someone where it's page me. That suddenly becomes funny because nobody uses pagers anymore. Some things become funny by accident, and some things lose their ability to be funny just based on time. If you're doing topical humor, I think is what I'm getting at. But I was also saying Jamie Lee Curtis was not originally cast to be Ophelia.
No, this was actually her breakthrough role because previous to this, she had only been in horror movies, and a lot of people thought she could only do horror.
Right. Well, she was known as the Scream Queen.
Yes. Which is interesting because her mother was starred in Psycho.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, her mother was the woman from Psycho that gets, whacked by Norman.
That's interesting.
Let me see what her name was. Janet Leigh.
Huh. I did not know that.
She was Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
Wow.
And she also makes a cameo in Halloween H2O as some teacher, because that's the one where Jamie Lee Curtis is the friggin' the headmistress of this posh boarding school or something, and So some teacher she plays like some secretary or teacher or something, and like she scares Jamie Lee Curtis by accident.
Oh God.
H2O was a pretty bad movie.
Is that the one with Busta Rhymes?
No, I think that's Halloween Resurrection, which was even worse.
Yeah, they're both pretty bad.
Yeah.
But so Jamie Lee Curtis was not supposed to be in this movie, and John Landis just said no, we're getting her. Like this dude.
Yeah, they took a chance on her.
Yeah, he really.
And it was her breakthrough role. She, this showed that she was she could do more than just be a scream queen.
Yeah, and they wrote her in well because it wasn't like okay, it's just some prostitute. It was like no, she's actually a really smart woman.
Yes.
Who figured out how to play the game, and she was just like, listen, I'm 23, I figured I could do this for about 5 years and then I'd have enough to retire on. Just by her bonds and just by her bond trading and everything, and with all the money that they end up making from insider trading, they they all of them can retire and do whatever they need to do, and they do retire to a beach eventually, and Coleman's got himself a nice a nice sugar mama, and well actually he's the sugar daddy, so he's got himself a nice he's got himself a nice young lady at the beach, and so does everybody else. Winthorpe and Jamie Lee Curtis, Ophelia end up getting together because she basically saves him.
Yeah.
And him and Billy Ray are all good. They're all good friends having a laugh on a private island. But here's another interesting bit of trivia. So in 2010, as part of the Wall Street Transparency and Accountability Act, which was meant to regulate financial markets, a rule was included which barred anyone from using secret inside information to corner markets, which was exactly what the Duke brothers were trying to do.
I can't believe it took them that long to make a fucking rule against that.
Because it had probably been going on long enough, and the people that made their money got out. So, all right, well, now nobody else can do it, but we made our money, so we can't do. I'm sure whoever it was that regulated that put the regulation down was in on it. They already made their money. That's how all of these things happen in the actual way that this thing is run. It's like the thing the other day, how or a couple of weeks ago where they asked Nancy Pelosi point blank about it.
Oh yeah,
trading, and she basically just said she basically admitted to insider trading without admitting to insider trading, because they were they asked
she's basically what she said is it's a free country, I can do what I want, essentially is what she said.
Yeah,
even though they told her you have inside knowledge of things and you're making money off of that, isn't that insider trading? Well, I should be still allowed to trade. I mean, it's a free country, it's a free market, I should be able to do what I want.
Yeah, she basically was just she basically just said Okaiba at that point. She was just told. She basically
screw the rules. I have money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, because AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the politician. For those of you who don't know her by that name or don't follow politics, good for you. Don't follow politics. It's a messy business and a miserable life.
It sucks, and they should all go down in a Ponzi scheme.
They hopefully will one day.
No, they won't. They are the Ponzi scheme.
They really are. I say that with wishful thinking, hopefully, but it won't happen.
No.
Anyway, so basically she's hey, listen, people in Congress should not be allowed to do insider trading because they're too close to the information. They already know what's going to happen before it happens. They know how that will affect something. So they have plenty of time to get in or get out before something happens. So they should only be allowed to just do indexes, which I think is fair. And of course, any normal person would say that, but of course they all do it.
Yes.
So they're not going to let it happen, especially when Congress is the one who has.
I think Nancy Pelosi gets away with it because she says, "Oh well, it's my husband's money, and he does what he wants with it." Basically, it's after you go tell him what to fucking buy, you jackass.
Yeah, that's her line, and that's her story, and she's sticking to it. And
yeah,
but it's not like anything would actually happen to her anyway.
No.
Anybody in these powers, nothing will ever happen to them, so it doesn't really make a difference on what they approve of. Even if they all said tomorrow, okay, we're not going to do it anymore. Each and every one of them none of them would go in, none of them would go to jail for it because they're all in bed with each other and they all know that the other one's doing it. So they would still do it anyway. And I don't think there'd any real crackdown or ramifications. But this is not a political thing, but I just think it's hilarious that this took, like you said, up until 2010.
Yeah.
For like Wall Street to actually stop doing this.
It's just it's crazy. That's the world we live in. Yeah. Welcome to fucking Earth.
Yeah, it's a peek inside what really goes down.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Trading Places. It's a great movie. So it's a fun little look into the stock market a little bit, and it's funny. It's hilarious. It's got Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, which again we've said so many times before in the past that they're fucking amazing, and like pretty much everything they do is gold. So if you haven't seen Trading Places, go fucking watch it. It's just so good. It is hilarious, and it stands the test of time. It's timeless. It's just so good. There's nothing
that you could do to this movie that it's already, well, there's a couple of changes that you could make if you were going to make it now, such as what we said before, the blackface, and also there are a couple of like racial slurs that are spewed throughout the movie, not like an abundance, but but one is too many. So they'd have to clean up the language a little bit, and they'd also have to take that out. But I think for the most part, they could still make this movie today.
Yeah, probably. It wouldn't be as good though.
No.
Nothing that they make today is as good as what it was.
No. I'm not saying if they. I'm not saying if it was a shot for shot. I'm saying if they made the actual movie today, if they made the exact same movie, and they just had made those minor changes, I think they could still make the movie. I think they could. I think the exact same movie could be made, barring those minor changes.
Yeah.
But that's how timeless this movie is.
But they don't ever really, there's no comedy like that today. So, that's why it's like, it would never be made today because comedy today is so much different than it was in the 80s that it just wouldn't be, wouldn't be funny.
No, it wouldn't have the same impact at all. It wouldn't. No. It wouldn't be, it definitely wouldn't skyrocket the careers of these people the same way that it did. Because Lee Curtis went on to, they all went on to be megastars. While I would say Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy were right about to crescendo and they were tasting that level of success, Jamie Lee Curtis had yet to, and she went on to build a very wonderful career for herself. Like I think that she did after. I think one of the next couple of movies that she did after, within a couple of years, she was working with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the highest paid actor at that time.
True Lies,
which also has Tom Arnold.
Oh yeah,
character is pretty tough.
Luckily, it's only a small role.
Yeah, but
good movie, but it's just Tom Arnold.
Very good movie.
So bad.
But that just goes to show you like how far her career how her career took off after that. Where she goes from this being her breakout role to being, to working with Arnold Schwarzenegger during his, like it's just said that all that just that speaks for itself, and the amazing directorship. I don't know, the amazing directing of John Landis. The writing is just perfect, and Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy they had so much chemistry. I wish that they made more movies together.
Yeah. They did it. I agree. There's still time. They're both alive. There's still time for them both.
There is
So-
still time, so maybe they
Dan
do
Aykroyd and
trading-
Eddie Murphy, if you hear this podcast, please make another movie together.
Yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis is also still kicking, so they could do it Trading Places too if they want.
No, don't do
I think
that.
They should. I don't
Do
think they
something
should.
new.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would suggest they do something original. I don't want them to do a sequel to this, but they could if they wanted to, where it's, I don't know, where they would, I guess the new big bad would be the descendant of Duke, who, like, clawed his way back into, like, you know, financial relevancy. Based
Yeah.
on some that he got from Prince Hakeem. That would be the only logical thing that I would have to say. But I don't even like is what the plot would have to follow. But I have no idea what any other problem. I have no idea what else would happen, or like what the pitfalls would have to be. But if you want to contract me, I'll write your movie. Just pay me. But this movie is fantastic. I love it. I'm very happy that I got to see this again. It's just fun. It's also very quotable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got to say about this thing.
All right.
Thanks everybody for sticking around, listening to this show. We really appreciate it. We hope you had a good time. And for God's sakes, go watch Trading Places.
Yeah.
It would behoove you in the new year to make that part of your resolution. Watch Trading Places. And also be safe and healthy and all that other nonsense. I've been Chris.
I've been Rob.
And remember, question everything.
Good night, everybody.